This is the Prestigious Initiative, and these are the points. I'm Chris Kent, and I'm joining Chris Bean. Hello, Mr. Bean.
Hello, sir.
Let's talk about your conversation with Jeff Barnes. Really great to sit down with Jeff and learn from him very clearly. He has not only done the research, but he's also put that research into practice to get him where he is today and be able to help lots of people with this information. So I'm really glad we could talk with him and learn about business and many more things during that conversation with him.
I really appreciate his mental approach to different obstacles. And we talked about a little bit as we were conversing that a lot of that came sort of out of the military background, but not in totality. And so bringing that and bringing his own parts to that and the benefits of each to be able to facilitate high pressure situations, high stress situations, and navigate those in a cool, calm, kind of collective way, I think that was very helpful, I think.
Absolutely. I like that there's, at least in my opinion, three key takeaways from our conversation, and we'll kind of work our way through these as we go. But I think to boil it down to three, he talked about communication, we talked about planning, and then we talked about learning. And so beginning with communication, he very often throughout emphasized how important it is to communicate not only to people that are below you, but also people that are above you, and making sure that you're communicating clearly so that people understand what you want, people understand what to expect from you, people understand what you're asking of them, and that everyone's on the same page, and so that there's no confusion and we can all get the job done because we all understand what each other wants and what each other expects from one another in a business. And again, the nice thing is that this also translates to life. And so that, in our personal relationships outside of business, it's important to communicate how you're feeling, what you're wanting, it just transcends business and it can be appropriate for everything. But again, this is clearly something that's important to him that we can adopt, that he has already implemented in his businesses, his life, to get him where he is today.
Yeah, communication skills, I think they can't be understated. Like those are the most helpful things. If you can have a thought that is impactful or beneficial, however you cannot clearly communicate that thought to other people, then it's no use to anybody. So being able to clearly articulate the things that you're saying and clearly get your point across as you're saying it is so helpful in many endeavors in life.
And in business, building those relationships is crucial. It's important to keep your clients happy. When you're onboarding new clients, he talked about being able to bring them in and help educate them about what you're going to do for them, what you can do for them, and why you're important to them. And speaking of importance, he talked about after you've onboarded a client and you have them with you, making sure they know that they are still important to you. And he talked about apathy being the biggest killer of business. And so when you take someone on and you bring them in and you woo them at the beginning, but then you kind of let them fall to the wayside as you're with them longer and longer and longer, well, they're going to turn to someone else that's going to give them that same attention you did at the beginning. So what you need to do is sustain that attention, sustain that care, check in with them, say, hey, I just wanted to check in with you. I know you asked for this. How's it going? I know that, you just took a vacation. How was your vacation? Or, hey, I see that, X, Y, or Z is happening in your life. And building that relationship and maintaining that communication is important in business to stay on good terms with your clients. And again, who doesn't want to feel like you care about them? We expect that from our friends and family, but when you can get that from a business, man, that does a lot for your relationship. And I would guarantee that's going to be beneficial in retaining your clients, but then also, like we mentioned, bringing in new clients as well.
Yeah. He talked about the sales force being really the driving force behind those connections. Of course, since they sold the product to the client, they are the ones who establish that relationship, and they're likely the ones who are able to sustain that relationship. And so that those salespeople have such an important role in the company. Like people think, okay, once a sale is done, it's done. Well, it's not. It's not done. And learning from him that that sale, once it's done, that's the first step, the first stage. Like there's many more things on that path to keeping them, securing that person, keeping those clients happy and satisfied. And, hey, it's not just about, calling them and say, hey, this is us and we're still here. And hey, did you check this out? But, it's one of the things that he said that resonated with me was, you think about like Coke or Pepsi, you see their brands all the time, but they're not saying, hey, drink Coke, or, it's literally just a billboard with Coca-Cola on it. There's no call to action. It's just that. And that is enough in our eyes that we see that, like, oh yeah, right. Coke, I like Coke. It's that brand recognition. It's that continual contact with your clients, with your customers, that is so important. And the sales force are, again, that's the driving force. It's those individuals are so impactful to sustaining that relationship, which is immensely important for business.
And part of what got them to that point, I think, those businesses, is planning, which is another one of the things that we talked about with Jeff. And so we talked about planning, not only having effective planning going into any sort of situation, or having effective planning for where you want your business to go, which once again ties into life, where you can have effective planning for how you want your life to be, and have that end goal, and then work your way backward and how you can reach that end goal through effective planning. We talked about having planning, and planning through multiple different situations can be important for dealing with stress and the pressure, which helps you to endure in your business and in life. One of the things that he mentioned, which I really appreciate and I think is vital, however, not always implemented in a lot of businesses, and even can transcend into life, I think is what he called contingency planning, and having redundancies. So we talk about, you have one person who does this one job, and they know how to do that job really well, but they're kind of the only person who can do that job. Well, what happens when that person is sick? What happens when that person goes on vacation? What happens when that person decides they want to make a life change and they're not part of that business anymore? Well, you only have that one person that can do that thing. So no one can step in and fill those shoes and do that job. You'd have to train someone else up, which costs a lot of money and a lot of time when you're talking about a business. And so having that contingency and plan, or the redundancy, hey, Mr. Bean does this job and he's really good at it, but let's train, Mr. POTUS to do part of this job, so that if Mr. Bean is out, or he needs help, or he's swamped with work, well, Mr. POTUS can do this job. And while we're at it, let's train Mr. Kent to do this other part of Mr. Bean's job, so that if Mr. Bean's out, Mr. POTUS covers this part, Mr. Kent covers this part, and it kind of works all together. And again, I think that that's not something that a lot of people do. A lot of businesses might even not do, but it's really important for your business to have that contingency, to have those redundancies built in, so that you don't have to deal with major roadblocks when someone decides that, they need to make a career change, or they're going to take some time off, or they can't handle X, Y, or Z thing. And, I hearing about that, I almost shaking my head. It's like, why do people not do this? It just makes so much sense to have this redundancy and contingency placed in your business. And that also feeds into your culture and your community, because you should always be moving toward the same goal as a company, as a team. And so having people that can do these other jobs to help the company reach that specific shared goal is going to be huge. And I think, again, it's something very valuable that isn't always practiced in a lot of places that many people could benefit from.
Yeah, and as that talk was being established, planning and contingency planning and all those things, and making sure that there's redundancies built in, all is sustainability. And being able to sustain the business for longer than that one individual person, because that one individual person decides, like you said, that they want to go and have a family, and they're not going to be there for 6 months or 9 months or whatever it is. Okay, well, man, now that Mrs. Smith is gone, I don't know what to do, and the business collapses because that's a problem there. So in order to have sustainability, you have to plan, and you have to plan for contingency planning. You got to do building redundancies and all of those things. The planning really is the key thing that helps that sustainability be impactful.
Yes, sir. one of the things that Jeff talked about with when he's talking to clients sometimes, there's a question he'll ask them. Do you remember what that question is?
I don't.
He usually likes to ask them, what keeps you up at night?
Yes.
And based on that question, you can start to plan and communicate what you need to do to stop that from happening. And so, for example, what keeps you up at night? You need to talk about maybe your business failing, or maybe not having enough money, or not making enough sales, or whatever it is. From that answer to that question, again, just like we talked about having your end goals, you can work backward. Well, if my concern is that everyone's going to leave, I'm not going to have any workers, well, you can set up a training plan, a training course, so that if that does happen, you're easily able to onboard new employees. Or you can make sure you have a backlog of employees who, again, are trained in redundancies and trained in this contingency planning to help fill in those places. But that leads into learning, and where he talked about, he might learn something from someone he's talking with, someone that's below him, he's asked the input for, someone that's above him, that's shared some wisdom with him. Whatever it is, when he learns that thing, it doesn't just stay within him. He makes a video, and then he makes a way for everyone that he wants to get that video to can access it and learn what he learned, and being open to that learning, not only from other people, but also seeking out the learning. So if someone has something to share, instead of just closing off your mind and saying, oh, well, I know better, well, I can't learn anything from you, being always available and always willing to learn from anybody, no matter who it is, keeps him in a good place where he can gather information and gain insight from all sorts of different sources. But then actively seeking it out, reading books, watching videos, attending courses, intentionally setting forth to become better. He talked about sometimes there's problems in his business when then he doesn't know what that problem is. Okay, well, let me go find out how to fix this. Let's say the computer stops working. Okay, I'm going to go learn everything I can about computers so that I can fix my computer. And so again, he's constantly striving for that knowledge, and that's helped him in his business world or in his business life. And you can see where it's got him up to the point where he is now, having that kind of inquisitive and learning focused mind. But think about that in your daily life. Think about that in your personal life. Outside of business, if you're always trying to improve yourself, always trying to learn more about everything that you can, and always trying to find different ways to become better, reading books that make you more knowledgeable, watching videos that teach you things, it's just going to make you a more well-rounded, more knowledgeable person. And I can only imagine it's going to enrich your life, as it already has, we can see in Jeff's life.
Right. And going back to that question, the way the business owner answers that question of what's keeping them up at night, if they're having a consistent issue that is keeping them up at night, the consistent issue, and they're not doing something about it, if you, listener, are not doing something about it, then nothing's going to change. And so if that is, oh man, I don't think if so-and-so leaves, man, I don't know what to do. If whatever that issue is, figure out what you need to do, make some steps, build a plan, implement the plan, expect the plan to go off rails, and then try to do a different plan. That's just how life works. But you have to do something about it, otherwise it doesn't change. And as you're talking about always seeking knowledge and learning how to do all these different things, that goes back to a concept that I'm sure we've talked about before, which is consistent and never-ending improvement. You always want to be consistently learning for the improvement of yourself, for your team, for your business. And if you are stagnant, if you stop learning, you stop moving, you stop improving on yourself, then the realms that you were in, your family life, your personal life, your work life, all of those things also stay stagnant. It's like you have a globe that is turning, and as soon as you stop moving, boop, all of the other things that you incorporate with also stop. Especially if you're the owner, you're the leader of those things. So you want to keep your globe, that's a weird analogy, but I'm stuck to it now. You want to keep your earth, your globe spinning, and the more that's spinning, the more the other things will spin as well, so that everything is always moving. Again, it's consistent, never-ending improvement. So you are always improving towards the better, for the betterment of yourself, for the teams that you're with, all of those things, as it overflows into every area that you're in.
I think those, like I said, are the three main takeaways from our conversation with Jeff. So you have communication, planning, and then learning or education, to put it in, again, a different term there. But I think the last thing to kind of take away from our conversation, we talked about more toward the end. Jeff was very knowledgeable about the importance of knowing your audience, the importance of finding your tribe, and becoming in tune with that, and really catering to that in a business side. But again, this can apply to life too, where you're investing time into people who are going to invest time into you and are also going to be helpful and beneficial for you. We talked specifically about being immune to criticism. You're not going to make everybody happy. If you say something and it makes someone upset, well, maybe that person's not part of your audience. And again, that's excluding anything that's, borderline or absolutely crazy. Of course, that's your own fault. You should figure your problems out. But if what you're saying you believe in and just someone doesn't agree with you, that's not your audience. Don't waste time on those people. Find the people that do agree with you and feed into them and learn from them and be in community with them, because that's who's going to think like you. That's who's going to be on your side. And on a business side, laser target on those people and market to those people, work with those people, try to sell yourself to those people. And don't worry about the other people who are over here bad-mouthing you and not agreeing with you, because that's not your audience. That's not your tribe. And in the end, you want to be true to yourself, whether that's yourself as a business person or yourself in your personal life, and figure out where you want to go, and then the steps you need to take to get you to that point, and the people you should surround yourself with on the way. That's going to help you and help to also progress you on that path of where you're going and what you're doing.
Right. Finding a tribe, a team, your people can be tough, can be challenging. And of course, that's a road that's full of lots of obstacles and lots of heartache potentially. But it's so important to be with a team of like-minded individuals, so that the things that you say are the things that they're thinking, and vice versa. And you guys can create synergy and move towards a common goal, whatever that may be. And I think that, with Jeff, we talked about, unfortunately, people will get in trouble because they'll say something that they feel, or that they need to say, they need to get off their chest, and somebody will be upset about that, because that's where we are today. Somebody will be upset about that, and it doesn't matter what I say, how I say it. Somebody's going to be upset about something I say anyways. It's going to happen, but that person is upset about it. 1, 2, 12 people, however many. And then I have another set of people that, because I said this, other people are like, "Oh yeah, that's right. You're right on that. I believe that." If I retract that statement, sure, I might make those people that I originally, off-put feel better. Probably not. But then the other side will be my tribe, the people that I actually want to connect with, won't want to connect with me because I went back on what I said. So essentially what I'm saying is, if you're going to say something, say it and stand by what you say. Don't be wishy-washy on your feelings, your beliefs, or whatever it is. If you believe it, say it and believe it. And that will help your tribe be attracted to you.
Yes, sir. Make sure you follow us on social media. You can find the podcast at Prestigious Pod.
You can find me, Chris Bean, at Chris Bean Official.
You can find me, Mr. Kent, at Mr. Chris R. Kent.
And if you like our content and would like to subscribe to our email, you can do that via our social media or on the website.
Make sure you also join our Discord for exclusive content and personal interactions.
If you would like to be coached on how to live a more prestigious life by me, Chris Bean, you can do that by reaching out on one of my social medias or by emailing the podcast at prestigiousinitiative@gmail.com.
Those are the points. Make sure you come back next week for even more points and another great conversation. Until next time, I'm Chris Kent.
And I'm Chris Bean.